Welcome, Nat.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad.
So, it's exciting because this is another live tasting I've done. It's always quite nervy doing it in front of people. It's like, will they like it? Won't they like it? It's quite
Yeah,
interesting, but I find these very good feedback to instead of me just sending out samples to people
yeah,
and them having to just write, yeah, it's nice or
yeah. Yeah, no, it's a pretty creative way of doing it, to be honest. I mean, I don't know how many people you've sort of had respond back just to give it a go, but I think people are always quite intrigued with new products.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting way of, yeah, getting people's feedback.
And you do. I've seen for a number of months you do that Friday foodie
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah. That was actually something that I started at the beginning of the pandemic just to basically try and hero some of the like more smaller food and drink producers that I knew might be struggling off the back of not necessarily having the distribution of some of the large brands, and just making sure that if people were, I guess, ordering more products online or wanted to kind of support small businesses, that they could have a different option of, who to test out or who to order. And then it's
Mm,
kind of just taken off where it works for me because I just get to, discover and taste and find new brands.
yeah.
But also works for, or my network sort of seems to like it across buyers that end up being interested in, the product as a piece of innovation, or even just people within my network that are interested in food and drink that want to try it as a consumer and just want something different. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked seeing all the different brands you had, and a couple brands I've seen that you've shown, I've heard about, and it's like, oh, I know that one, and it's
Yeah,
nice to see. So
yeah.
yeah, it was good, and I see you have a vast experience in this industry, like with Vita Coco.
Yeah,
And
so yeah, I've literally now been working in sort of food and drink SMEs for about 10 or 11 years. So
mm,
started back in the day with Vita Coco when no one really knew what coconut water was, all the
mm.
way through to yeah, kind of coffee and chocolate and crisps. So really staying in this sort of niche bubble of really kind of young food and drink businesses that want to grow, which has been really exciting. So
Do you find it hard with it being so niche markets, or is that more exciting?
no, that's weird. I mean, because I've sort of always stayed within this sort of smaller food and drink space. Um, it's in terms of like career path, there's loads of different options. I've never really been interested in the super corporate, just because now that I've experienced sort of what it's like to work with startups and work sort of directly with founders or people that started it, it just suits me a bit more to kind of be a bit more, I guess, hands on and feel like you built something directly or you're a part of something directly, and helping put all that structure in place. So, no, weirdly, the niche is actually quite useful.
So when I approached you with my product, what were your first thoughts on the
Yeah,
brand, the
honestly,
product?
yeah, I think did you work with who did your branding?
Mike Nash,
Yeah, Mike Nash, yeah.
he did the
I
branding
know
for
him.
Happy J's, which you
Yeah,
reviewed.
yeah. Yeah, I know Mike. He's really great. So I thought the branding was very different. I guess I was just intrigued by the name, by the fact that it's, a particular type of beer, but with so many unusual ingredients and, I guess, claims for a beer. So I'm just
Okay.
really intrigued just to, yeah, I'm just really intrigued to taste
We,
it, hear a
which
bit more
claims were they?
about you wouldn't necessarily associate a beer with a probiotic, for example. And as soon as you start going into avocado and lime,
Yes.
again, you're like, that's not quite what I would associate beer with. But like I said, I'm always up for I've got the bottle in front of me, by the way, not just like
Cool.
staring
Yeah.
down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think they were the, cleaner drink, stuff that's good for the gut. and some of the ingredients on it just make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to crack it open and see what
Yeah.
you think?
But it feels very surreal. I know, even though it is very low alcohol, it does feel very surreal cracking open a beer bottle at 10:30 in the morning. But let's see.
It might be a little bit lively. It's not too bad.
It actually smells like kombucha, which I guess is, I mean, you'll go into that, but I'm guessing that's sort of some sort of similarity.
Yeah, so some people say it's similar to beer, some say it's similar to kombucha. So it's that in-between product.
Oh, that's interesting. I would say I'd say that's more like a kombucha than a beer.
Yeah, it's a hard one because when Kvas, it's like, it's from Eastern Europe, so it's like their alternative to a low alcohol beer.
Okay.
But it's on the same platform as a kombucha. So it's the fermented. That's why when you ferment, it produces lactobacillus, which is good bacteria, which gives you the same benefits as a kombucha does.
Yeah. So tell me more about the kind of traditional drink. So you're saying that it's an Eastern European low alcohol beer, but what, is this their kind of main? Is this the kind of main option versus like a non-alcoholic?
So the normal one's made with rye bread, so it's very malty, very dark brown, very sweet. But so I've taken the same process as the Kvas and used more Western products. For example, sourdough is well known in the UK, and a lot of people are loving it at the moment. So we're trying to take the mass-produced bread from artisan bakers that go to waste instead of using a rye bread, which, okay, people have heard of it, but it's not as commonly used in the UK. So I wanted a product that is quite used at the moment and fits the millennial market. So we're quite different to a normal Kvas because it's quite heavy, dark colour, but it has the similarities on the processes.
It's got a lot of fizz as well. So again, it kind of feels more like I don't know, I don't know how, but it feels like the fizz in a beer is a little bit smoother, whereas in a kombucha it is a bit more of like I guess it's more active, so it's got a different type of feeling when you're actually drinking it. I feel like it needs slightly more flavor. Like I feel like I feel like it smells nice when you first drink it. When you first drink it, you get the subtle flavor, but then it kind of fades away quite quickly. I don't know whether it's extra like sweetness or extra like fermentation or just more of everything to just lift it a little bit. But it is very, I mean, I guess if you were wanting a session beer, but not necessarily like the non-alc stuff, or if you were previously drinking kombucha and you wanted sort of a fruity fizz that sat a bit more in between, then I can see its appeal. I like the leftover bread. There's a bit like toast beer where they're kind of using the bread element. I think it's just a really sort of nice touch. I guess it's for me, it would be who is the kind of prime consumer of this, are you trying to switch people that are drinking no and low, or are you trying to switch the people that are, kind of on those kombuchas and more not even touching the kind of no and low? They're actually like, they don't necessarily want something super associated with alcohol. They actually are drinking a kombucha or just a really nice like premium sparkling drink, just as the primary.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to figure out now where we're based in, because it's such a unique product. I think it floats in between both markets, so it's trying to figure out the feedback from people to see who it appeals to more.
Yeah, and I guess so. If you only got one SKU, so it's just the Brunch IPA,
Yes.
would you then have, so the traditional beer that you've spoken about that's a bit darker, are you anticipating launching a couple of other options? Because again, with an IPA, usually an IPA is sitting alongside like a pale ale or a stout or a lager. Are you thinking about expanding it so there are a couple of different options with this type of beer? Or
so firstly, we use the word in IPA in a different way. So we use it as an ideal plausible alternative, which wraps up into more the low alcohol, saying here's a great alternative to have instead of a higher amount, or your kombucha, which is more vinegary taste. So it gives you that alternative. But we are lining up 4 more products in the future, but they'll all be based around the same 3 elements. A very well used bread. So one of my next products will be used as panettone.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
At Christmas time, you see loads of panettones on the shelf.
Yeah.
And so much goes to waste after that Christmas period. So I would like to take them all on board and turn that into our next product.
Yeah.
So a fruit or a vegetable and then a citrus. So those are the 3 elements in my products. But we will not be going traditional Kvas. Is just continuing aiming for what bread can we use to stop wastage.
Yeah, I just wonder then, like, given that I'd say the education or the awareness of craft beer in the UK is going to be pretty minimal. Like, I love exploring different types of beer on different breweries, and I'm kind of that consumer, but I've never heard of it. But
there's only 3 other companies in the UK who produce it.
But
then in Eastern Europe,
like, if it's not really that well known in the UK, by putting it on your bottle when you're also not doing it in a traditional way might be quite counteractive, given that the consumer is then like, I have no idea what type of beer that is, rather than it being a kind of a feel-good beer, or like good for the gut beer, or something, almost kind of creating your own category for it. Because if there's like minimal similarities, but also if the person over in the UK is actually shopping that category and doesn't know what it is anyway, then it potentially acts as another barrier for the reason why they wouldn't buy it over someone that's maybe looking for something healthier or like with purpose or low alc, that even just by saying like beer with good bacteria beer or whatever it might be seems a bit more accessible. But if there's a type of beer that I've never heard of before, or that they've never heard of before, and then they're having to justify potentially a slightly higher price point, and then it's got all these other things in it, you're potentially then giving a couple of different reasons why someone would be like, oh, I'm actually just going to stick to my usual because it seems a bit too different. But also, if you've got anything that's sort of new over to the UK that requires education, means quite a lot of like cost for marketing. Like educating a consumer on a different type of product that sits within like a mass category it tends to usually be super expensive. So almost you could save yourself the fact that it's associated with that, and having to educate people on what Kvas beer is already, but then saying it's different, And then the other education piece that's like, oh yeah, but it is a beer, but it's low alcohol and it's got all this stuff that's good for you, and we use bread. Like, just sub down one education piece.
And very interesting, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Is it
Really
something you
cool.
would drink again? Honestly,
I don't know yet. I think I'd be looking for a little bit more flavour.
Okay.
Like sustained flavour. I buy sort of quite a lot of I buy quite a lot of like kombuchas and like no low sort of drinks, and actually just like a really good sort of sparkling drink that's not too, you know, full of sugar, and maybe has like another function to it, such as good for your gut or whatever it might be. So I feel like I sort of shop this category, but I think if you're trying to do it with a focus on the gut stuff more so than it being necessarily a lower alcohol, then kombucha is such a strong flavor that I think this needs, if that's where you're going. Whereas if you're trying to do it based on a couple of beers, then maybe people would find it as quite like a nice softer option. But I think it's not strong enough, it's not sustained enough to be comparable against the kombucha for me at the moment.
Okay.
But also the low, if I'm then also comparing it to a couple of like non-alcoholic beers, it doesn't taste beery enough. So you're kind of in between, because you're not trying to be an actual IPA, even though I appreciate you've changed the meaning of it. If again people are shopping it as an IPA beer and it's not tasting like an IPA beer in the way that they expect it to, that's kind of what they're comparing it against. And I'd say then it doesn't taste like hoppy enough in order to be able to be similar. But if you're going the other way of the kombuchas, I think it's got some really good, you know, elements to it. It's got that kind of health purchase sort of driver with the good bacteria, but it needs to have a bit more flavor, because all of that category is actually then relying on flavor in order to be able to, you know, keep people sort of satisfied.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
it's all valuable information.
what's
Feedback?
What's the name about?
So the name, so I had a meeting with the Goat Agency 3 years ago with another Kvas brand, and I wanted to know how to describe Kvas to people who've never heard of it. So I was trying to think of the name, and because it's a fermentation, and it's made from bread. When you make a sourdough, you have a mother starter.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what do you go? So I'm like, it's similar to kombucha. So I was like, a brother from another mother. It's like a term you use where it's, we're the same, but we're also from a different background. So then that led me to think about an urban name for a brother, which is Breadrin. So then that's how it came into play.
Okay. Well, which also works quite nicely with the fact that you've incorporated leftover bread.
Yes.
Yeah, really. So then you've got two like brother in arms as part of the logo, yeah?
Well, that reflects like being built in the COVID times where you did the fist pump instead of shaking hands.
Okay.
And then also it reflects because I'm a baker by trade. So it's how you knead a sourdough.
Yeah.
So it's like kneading sourdough. So there's many meanings behind the logo.
Yeah, cool. I mean, like I said, it's a real, there's so many different potential elements to it to focus on. I think it's just about really honing down
particular parts,
which type of consumer, but then also what the primary. So like often with products that have so many good elements about it, that actually could be the reason why people purchase it. So for example, low alcohol is one, maybe you know, the probiotic is 2, the previous surplus is 3, the fact that it's kind of then a refreshing alternative made in the UK. They're all really good elements and reasons for people to purchase, but it's about trying to figure out what's the primary reason to purchase that, or what type of consumer is like looking for something like this, and are you trying to compete as a healthier non-alcoholic beer or like low alcohol beer, or are you trying to compete against the kombuchas where people maybe can only have sort of one or two and then they might be transitioning on to something else, or maybe they've just had so much kombucha and actually it's too powerful a flavor in order to be able to kind of be drinking it all night, or it's too fizzy. So it's like trying to figure out what the main purchase is that people the reason why people would actually pick up in the first place, and then also to, out of all of the elements of the product, what are the things that actually interest people the most. Because if it's like me, if I was shopping for that kombucha, I'm looking for all the stuff that's like health associated, so the good gut, but also then wanting to know like how many calories it's got and how much sugar it's actually got. But then if you're the other side where it's like a beer alternative, but someone wants it low alcohol, it's then not so much about the sugar and the health, it's actually about low alcohol and taste, and maybe then the surplus. So you're kind of sort of in the middle of two different like parts of the category, I think. So it's just about trying to figure out where you can sort of sit, and just maybe testing out with a couple of consumers or with a bit of sort of market research whether or not people get confused by the Kvas like element of it and the IPA element of it. Like if you put IPA on there, people are probably shopping for that type of flavor. So if it doesn't taste like that, again, it's another piece of education that you've then got to say like, oh no, we mean it in this way. But actually when you see an IPA in a beer bottle shop, people are going to be assuming that that's what it's going to taste like. But really interesting. I mean, really interesting. And like I said, the smell and the first flavor is nice. I think it just needs to be sustained, or like a lift in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe even with the lime leaf to kind of make it a bit more, or something to make it a bit more citrusy, so it's a bit more like zingy rather than like a beery kind of taste. But yeah, like the branding, like I think it's got good potential. I think it just still needs a bit of tweaking as to where you actually want it to be positioned, and a bit of a lift.
Cool. Very educational. This has been. It's it's because we're such a young brand. It's trying to figure out where we go and just general feedback and seeing how it. Because I knew there are a couple parts to the branding and to the drink which I either loved or not loved, or people like, I'm not too sure. Like the use of IPA, it's a very controversial part to it. Like even by calling it a Kvas, I know a lot of people would not know it.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of elements that I'm just trying to gather information, see how people really feel.
Yeah.
To make those define decisions going forward.
Yeah. But that's actually that is really positive in itself, because quite often so many decisions within a startup are kind of made based on no data at all. It's kind of just like what sort of sounds good, or what maybe the overall category is saying, rather than actually asking people, regardless of whether or not you thought it was the right thing to do, asking people that may or may not be your target consumer and making a decision like based on that, rather than you as a team or you as the founder being like, no, I quite like it, so and I get it, so I'm just going to sort of do it and see what the response is going to be. So I think it's really positive to kind of keep on tweaking it by actually asking your target audience.
Also, as me as the founder, I might think it's amazing and I might enjoy and like certain parts to it, but I'm not the one I would buy it, but I'm not the one who is going to determine if the brand's going to be successful or not.
Yeah.
So by doing like these chats, I'm trying to figure out, okay, you have brought up this point, this point, this point, and then I can go away and watch all the responses I have, and then I can say,
Mhm.
well, 80% have said this. Is it
Yeah,
something we've got to consider? And
yeah.
yeah,
Have you taken it? Have you taken it to any like bottle shops or any health shops or anything like that at all?
and we're slowly getting into a few places. I'm in a few in Norwich and a few in London.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to test the market on different things. Like I'm in Eltham Wines in London. We're trying it in Holiday in Kensington.
Hmm.
We've just launched in Green Spears in Chelsea. So a few places in London.
Yeah.
All different types. So like a restaurant, a hotel,
Yeah.
a shop, to just see what the
Yeah. The
um
rate of sale is in each of
yeah.
those channels. Yeah, that's great. I mean, have you actually gone and done a tasting like where they've actually opened it in front of you with maybe someone that owns a bottle shop or owns like a brewery or something like that? Because I think that could be really interesting.
I was I had a tasting with the head brewer of Adnams a
Oh yeah.
few weeks ago, so that was very interesting
Yeah, I think that would be really
and
cool for you
daunting.
as
It
well.
was.
Yeah.
He seemed to enjoy it. So that's a potential lead going forward with them.
Yeah, no, I
But
think it's just it would be also interesting, like as well as kind of testing the different shops that you're putting into, go and do a tasting with someone or a couple of people from the beer side, and then go and do a tasting with a couple of people that are in the kind of fermented health section of the market. So maybe a
yeah,
couple of people that make their own kombuchas or are kind of into that space, like the prebiotic, probiotic sort of drinks, and just get their opinion, because then also, you might get some ideas from that as well.
cool, cool.
So
So no pressure, but I can give you like a code if you want for all your connections. So if
yeah,
anyone wants to try it and see what they think, so it's Nat 22 and they get 22% off the case.
okay, yeah, okay.
So yeah, it's been very knowledgeable. Thank you for trying.
No worries. Thanks for the invite. Like I said, I'm always up for trying something different and trying to, yeah, give some feedback on it to hopefully help you in the future. So
Cheers.
cool.
Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of your week as well.
Cheers,
Bye.
you too. Bye.